A ceasefire is an important step forward. Obviously, we saw how the previous agreements between the SDF and Damascus fell apart and led to some very serious violence in December and early January. And even after the previous agreement, I think we continue to see some violence. And so I'm hopeful that this agreement, which has some important steps, I think that will assure some greater role and security for the SDF and some greater compromises by Damascus will be implementable. I do think the United States can play a really important role in ensuring that the ceasefire is implemented, the agreement is implemented in full, and that there is not a renewed step towards violence. Well, I think it's true that there were some serious complaints and disagreements also in Washington about the role that the United States played in not putting enough pressure on Damascus to halt the violence and to halt the forward advance of the Syrian military forces. And so I think what we're seeing right now is a rebalancing of the U.S. position and one that has asserted a strong U.S. role in trying to mediate between the two sides and ensuring that the rights of the Syrian Kurds are protected. I think that in Washington, you see not only the administration, but I think that you see strong congressional support for protecting the Syrian Kurds and the SDF. And so I think this agreement shows that the United States is willing and able to put some pressure on Damascus to make some additional compromises. But I think it will also be important for the SDF to make compromises as well to ensure that this agreement moves forward. The reality on the ground is that the Syrian government did make some important military advances in taking territory. And so the SDF will need to acknowledge this in any of the negotiations moving forward. Well, so I think, one of the core interests of this administration that must be recognized is, since even the first Trump administration, President Trump has been eager to reduce and eventually withdraw the U.S. military presence. And I believe that's an important guiding force in some of the negotiations right now. And so I think that it's important for the Syrian Democratic Forces to acknowledge that reality and to make sure that they are taking steps that can be implementable, that can ensure their role in security and local governance in a way that will last beyond the U.S. military presence. So I think part of the reason here is that we see criticism of the administration, the U.S. administration right now, is that this focus on reducing the U.S. military presence, I think, coupled with the very strong support for President Ahmed al-Shara, has really reduced the leverage of the SDF. And I do think it is very important for the United States, both the administration and many of the Kurdish allies in Washington and Congress, really push the leadership in Damascus to ensure protection of the Kurds and to ensure the integration of the Syrian Kurds into the Syrian state. That's not only should not only be a priority for the United States, but it should be a priority for the Syrian government. A Syrian state that does not include the full participation and the protection of the rights of its minorities, including the Kurds, will not be stable. And so I think that that is a goal that all sides should be working towards. Well, I certainly hope that the latest agreement and the U.S. support for negotiating this latest ceasefire between the SDF and Damascus signifies a U.S. that is ready to use its strong leverage and support and able to ensure a fair and lasting and secure outcome for Syria's Kurds. I think that that is, as I said, I think that's important not only for the United States in order to support, our allies on the ground in the fight against ISIS, but I think that's very important for the stability of the Syrian state to make sure that the rights of the minority communities are protected and that the minorities are fully integrated into the government. Well, I think that what the Truth Social post from President Trump reveals is that there's still a strong interest in the United States in the relationship with Iraq and the nature of the next Iraqi government. I believe that there are signs that Special Envoy to Syria, Tom Barrack, may play an increasing role in U.S. policy towards Iraq. But I think there's a number of very capable individuals who have long been working on Iraq, including the Sharjah in Baghdad, as well as Secretary Rubio, who called Prime Minister Soudani just this past week. In terms of the nomination of former Prime Minister Nouri al-Maliki, I don't think it's surprising that the United States came out in opposition to this. And I think his nomination is not just controversial for the United States, but I think it's controversial for many Iraqis who viewed his first two terms as being quite difficult, and indeed by paving the way in some ways towards the resurgence or the emergence of ISIS. And I think when you look back at the history, it was an era of pretty strong sectarian division as well. I think President Trump was very clear in his message about the potential consequences for the relationship. And ultimately, based on my own conversations with the Coordination Framework leaders, I believe that they sought all along to appoint a prime minister who is acceptable not only to Iran, but also to the United States. And many of them have emphasized to me the importance of maintaining a strong relationship with the United States. So it will be up to the framework leaders to deliberate and negotiate on how they will proceed, whether with this nomination or the nomination of a new candidate. But ultimately, I believe the U.S.-Iraq relationship is too important for them to take any risks. And I believe that they will find a way to identify a new candidate who could really manage the partnership with the United States. Well, I think the question really here is, of course, this is a decision ultimately for Iraqi political leaders to determine how to go forward. But I think in any relationship between two countries, I think there have to be some decisions made about the nature of the relationship and how to move it forward. And in this case, the United States has made a clear position about their ability to work with Nouri al-Maliki as prime minister. It is up to the framework to decide whether to heed that warning from President Trump or whether they will proceed with the nomination. Of course, they would proceed with the nomination of Maliki, accepting some risk about what that would mean with the future relationship of the United States. And ultimately, I believe that is a risk that is too great to take. I think that's a very difficult question to answer, and I think only President Trump will be able to answer it. I think President Trump himself has made clear his readiness and willingness to strike, and we saw this just in June when the United States decided to join Israel in striking Iran's nuclear facilities. And yet, I think that at the end of the day, the president has also been clear that he's interested in reaching a nuclear deal and is open to negotiations. And so I think we see signs right now that the U.S. and Iran are continuing to explore the feasibility of such a negotiation. So, I think it remains to be seen whether the outcome will be one that leads to military conflict or one that leads to a continued negotiation.